In the spring of 1220, beneath the turquoise domes and minarets of Samarkand, the jewel of the Silk Road, a city of 200,000 souls where caravans from China, Persia, India, and Byzantium converged in a riot of silk, spice, and scholarship, the earth shook not with quake, but with the thunder of Mongol hooves, as Genghis Khan, the self-proclaimed Scourge of God, encircled the greatest metropolis of Central Asia, with 200,000 riders, 5,000 Chinese siege engineers, and a wrath ignited by a single act of arrogance. The Khwarazmian governor of Otrar's execution of a Mongol trade caravan and the mutilation of Genghis's envoy. An insult that demanded not just vengeance but annihilation. And after a 5-day siege that saw catapults hurl Greek fire, mines collapse the outer walls, and the inner citadel betrayed from within, Samarkand fell in a storm of blood and fire, its streets choked with 100,000 corpses, its mosques and madrasas looted, its women and children dragged screaming into slavery. Yet, in the midst of this holocaust, Genghis issued a command that would reshape the destiny of Eurasia. Spare the craftsmen, the 30,000 artisans, engineers, weavers, metalworkers, and architects whose skills were deemed more valuable than gold, and march them in chains across 3,000 miles of steppe to Mongolia, where they would forge the weapons, build the cities, and craft the empire that would conquer the world. The siege had been a masterpiece of terror and precision. Samarkand, ruled by the Khwarazm Shah Ala ad-Din Muhammad, was defended by 40,000 elite Turkish gulams, 60 elephant-mounted war towers, and walls 12 meters high, reinforced with iron clamps. But Genghis, having already razed Otrar, Bukhara, and Gurganj, knew the city's weakness, its dependence on the Zarafshan River for water. His Chinese engineers, captured during the Jin campaign, dammed the river upstream, flooding the fields and cutting the aqueducts, while Mongol sappers tunneled beneath the walls, packing the mines with gunpowder, early black powder bombs that exploded with a roar that shattered stone and morale alike. On the 5th day, the outer wall collapsed in 3 places. Mongol heavy lancers poured through the breaches, their lamellar armor glinting like fish scales, sabers flashing in the sun. The Gulams fought bravely, their scimitars cleaving Mongol helmets, but the Mongols fought as one organism, tumans wheeling in perfect coordination, archers loosing from horseback, lancers charging in waves. By nightfall, the outer city was theirs. The inner citadel held for 3 more hours, then betrayal came from within. A faction of the city's merchants, led by a silk trader named Mahmud al-Yalangtush, opened the Shah's gate in exchange for promises of mercy. The Mongols flooded in. What followed was not battle, but slaughter. Genghis had ordered no quarter for the military caste. Every gulam, every noble, every imam who had preached jihad was to die. The streets became rivers of blood. Mongol riders galloped through the bazaars, trampling bodies under hoof. Catapults, now inside the walls, hurled flaming naphtha into the wooden suburbs. The great mosque, where 10,000 civilians had sought refuge, was torched. Screams echoed as the dome collapsed. By dawn, 100,000 lay dead. Men, women, children, scholars whose libraries burned like pyres, their ink-blackened pages drifting like ash over the carnage. Yet amid this apocalypse, Genghis walked the ruins with his sons and generals, his eyes not on gold or silk, but on the living. He had seen the future in the Jin cities of China, how captured engineers built trebuchets that hurled 100-kilogram stones, how gunpowder bombs breached walls no battering ram could touch, how silk weavers produced banners that rallied armies, how metalworkers forged composite bows that outranged any in the world. Samarkand was a treasure trove of human capital. He ordered his Noyons to comb the city, find the craftsmen, the builders, the smiths, the weavers, the astronomers, anyone whose hands can make what ours cannot. The search was systematic. Mongol officers, guided by Persian-speaking interpreters, went door to door, workshop to workshop. A glass blower hiding in a cellar was dragged out by his beard. A master mason, cowering in a minaret, was hauled down by rope. A Chinese engineer, captured earlier at Bukhara, identified his counterparts. Within days, 30,000 were assembled in the Registan Square, filthy, terrified, but alive. Genghis addressed them through a translator. "You built this city. Now you will build my empire. Serve well, and your families live. Refuse, and you join the dead." The artisans were divided by trade. 5,000 metalworkers to forge arrowheads and siege engines, 3,000 weavers to produce silk banners and horse armor, 2,000 builders to construct palaces and fortresses, 1,000 astronomers and scribes to map the stars and record the yasa. The rest, glass-blowers, jewelers, paper-makers, assigned to camps across the growing empire. They were marched out under guard, chained at the ankles, carrying their tools, their families trailing behind in ox carts. The journey to Mongolia took 6 months, across the Oxus, through the Hindu Kush, over the Altai, a forced migration that killed thousands from cold, hunger, and despair. But 25,000 survived, resettled in camps near Karakoram, given yurts, rations, and one command: work. The impact was immediate and profound. Within a year, the metalworkers produced 100,000 composite bows, laminated with horn, sinew, and glue, that gave Mongol archers a range of 350 yards, 50 more than any rival. The siege engineers, under a Persian named Ismail al-Jazari, built trebuchets that hurled 200-kilogram stones, used to reduce the walls of Nishapur and Herat. The weavers produced silk undergarments that stopped arrows from penetrating flesh, saving countless Mongol lives. The astronomers mapped the heavens, guiding night marches. The papermakers produced the first Mongol currency, paper notes backed by silk. These craftsmen were not slaves in the traditional sense. They were state assets, housed in guarded compounds, paid in silver, and given Mongol wives to bind them to the empire. Their children were raised as Mongols, trained in the bow and the saddle, creating a new class of techno-nomads who blended steppe warfare with urban sophistication. The deportation was not mercy, it was strategy. Genghis understood that empires are built not just with swords, but with systems. The Khwarazmians had armies, but no logistics. The Jin had walls, but no mobility. The Persians had culture, but no unity. The Mongols had all three, enhanced by the very civilizations they destroyed. The craftsmen of Samarkand became the silent architects of conquest. Their trebuchets breached the Great Wall of China in 1232. Their gunpowder bombs shattered the Song fleet at Xiangyang in 1273. Their silk banners flew over Baghdad in 1258. Their paper money funded Kublai's Yuan dynasty. By the time Marco Polo arrived in 1275, Karakoram was a city of stone palaces, iron foundries, and glass workshops, built by the descendants of Samarkand's exiles. The human cost was incalculable. Families torn apart, cultures erased. A city that had taken centuries to build was reduced to rubble in days, its libraries burned, its scholars beheaded. Yet, from that rubble rose an empire that stretched from the Pacific to the Mediterranean. The 30,000 spared were not saved out of kindness, but because their hands could kill more efficiently than any sword. They were the deadliest weapons Genghis ever captured, living tools that turned enemy genius against enemy walls, that built the machines that broke nations, that wove the silk that cloaked the conquerors. Samarkand died so the Mongol Empire could live, and in the silence of its ruins, the wind still carries the echo of hammers on bronze, the whisper of silk on looms, the memory of 30,000 men who survived hell to forge heaven for their masters.